Good morning, Warzone kids. It is almost like a spring day here in Vermont by late winter standards. It's 22 degrees, almost up to freezing at my house this morning. It was 29 degrees. And I'm going to get in a lot of miles on the trail to the Western Lands. Warzone kids is my term for those of us like myself. I'm a child sex abuse survivor. Warzone kids is my term for those of us who had childhoods that were more like a hostile guerrilla war against our psyche, our soul, and less like the kind of nursery where you'd raise a hothouse orchid where it got all the care it needed. And I think of our psyche, our soul, as a Jenga tower, which at the beginning of the game is a block made up of smaller blocks, and at every turn in the game you take out one of the smaller blocks and you put it up on top. By the end of the game, the Jenga tower falls down, because that's how the game ends. And the game of life for us Warzone kids, in adulthood, we start out with the Jenga tower that's ready to fall down. It's a leaning, tottering thing, and we can sometimes spend our whole life oriented around stopping our Jenga tower from falling down. Well, my Jenga tower has fallen down any number of times, and I can tell you, when it falls down, things just got a lot simpler for you. Because when your Jenga tower falls down, you have a chance to put it back together. You can stop living your life in the hopes that it don't fall down, because that already happened. Now you can just deal with the pieces. And you find out that picking those pieces of your psyche up off the ground and putting them back together again in the shape of that Jenga tower, that's easier and a better life than walking on your tiptoes and not breathing and being real careful lest you upset that leaning tower of psyche and make it fall down. I think of life as a pilgrimage to the Western Lands. The Western Lands is a place of peace and wholeness where we learn and become what we are. Healing, you could call it. You could also just call it living your life. And I conceive of it as a pilgrimage, because a pilgrimage is an act of devotion, where the journey is the same thing as a destination. We learn and become who we are on the trail to learn and become who we are. And we put our Jenga tower back together in the course of learning and becoming who we are. And these last few videos I made were kind of about intergenerational trauma, you could call it, vampires. A vampire is made by another vampire. That vampire was made by another vampire. Where'd it come from? Where was the first one? Well, I told a story about Grandpa Abram and the well, and that's a story about where one strand of the vampire came from in my life, because the trials and tribulations and the hardness of the world that Grandpa Abram lived in was passed down. And so intergenerational trauma. There's a phrase, the child of the tiger is born with stripes. Now, that has to do with passing down harm and damage one generation to the next. That's one meaning of it. The child of the tiger is born with stripes. Here's a related phrase. The child of the lion is born roaring. Now, think about that. Let's think about that for a minute. The child of the tiger is born with stripes. Stripes. Well, let's take it apart here. Stripes can mean like stripes you get from being whooped, being whipped. There's a verse in the Bible, I think in the book of Isaiah, by his stripes we are healed. Now that has to do with Christ and salvation. But let's think about it as it relates to the tiger. The child of the tiger is born with stripes. By his stripes we are healed. Now, more than just damage and harm is passed down from tiger to tiger. Vampire is almost exclusively a, pathological image. There ain't no healthy vampires. But tigers is something else. The child of the tiger is born with stripes. By his stripes we are healed. Now, stripes, in terms of being whooped, stripes are a wound. Well, that's what they are. Whelps, stripes, cat o' nine tails. Christ being flogged and then crucified. Stripes are wounds. The child of the tiger is born with stripes. By his stripes we are healed. Stripes are not only wounds, though. Tigers have stripes. The child of the tiger is born with stripes. Tigers have stripes. Tigers are supposed to have stripes. Right? That's part of their nature. The child of the tiger is born with stripes. Stripes are wounds, but stripes are not only wounds. Stripes are how the tiger lives. Tigers have orange and black stripes on them, white mixed in there. Tigers are predators. Tigers go through the world blending in. The stripes are how the tiger lives. Somehow or another, black and orange stripes and white underbellies allow a tiger to blend in jungles, in India, and in forests of the far north. Tigers live in the northern boreal forest of the Siberia, right? Not unlike Vermont, where I live. I'm glad we don't have tigers here. But tigers live, because of their stripes, in the northern tundra of Siberia. They do not live in the tundra, they live in the northern forest. And they live in the jungles of India. I believe there's tigers in China as well. Stripes are how the tiger lives. Tigers are mighty beasts, bigger than lions. The child of the tiger is born with stripes. By his stripes we are healed. The stripes are wounds, and the stripes also let the tiger live. Now, let me put some meat on that bone. I could chart out the kind of damage and harm that's caused in my life by the shadow cast by Grandpa Abram in the story of the well, and the fact of that life that man had to live, the hardness of his existence, and the hardness of the man who survived that existence. The child of the tiger is born with stripes. By his stripes we are healed, and by the tiger's stripes the tiger lives. Grandpa Abram became the kind of man that he was, hard as nails, ruthless, ornery, merciless, pitiless on himself. He worked that farm every day. Whatever had to get done got done. He worked the farm through droughts. He worked the farm through floods. He worked the farm. He lived that life. They were hard times in a hard land, and he was a hard man. The child of the tiger is born with stripes. By his stripes we are healed, and by the tiger's stripes does the tiger live. The very hardness and orneriness. Orneriness is just a stubborn refusal to do anything except what you think is right to do. The orneriness of the mule. Grandpa Abram was a messenger in World War I. He was a conscientious objector, and he joined the army. And because he was a conscientious objector, he didn't shoot a rifle, he rode a mule. He carried messages back and forth. And mules are ornery critters. Got a reputation of being stubborn and whatnot. Well, some people say that's because mules are dumb. It's the opposite. The mule would tell you that the horse is dumb. Horse will run till it dies. A horse will try to walk with a load heavier than it can carry. A horse will go into hazardous surroundings, a mule won't. You put too much weight on a mule, it ain't going anywhere. You try to kick a mule, make it run faster than it wants to, it ain't going to go. It'll just hee-haw at you. Now, Grandpa Abram rode that mule through shelling in World War I. And that mule didn't run no matter how bad Grandpa Abram wanted it to run. That mule was ornery. It went at exactly the speed it thought was right to travel through shelling, which was careful and methodical. And Grandpa Abram was every bit as ornery as that mule. And that orneriness was passed down through our family. I don't know how. I don't care how. Somehow it's passed down. Epigenetics, that's a real thing. Behavior, the spirit. I don't care how, I just know that it was passed down. And the damage was passed down. I was causing an enormous amount of psychological, emotional, sexual harm by my maternal organism. I also got from her that orneriness. And my Jenga towers collapse in life any number of times. And for long stretches of my life, as an adult, I live with borderline personality disorder. I'm a recovering addict and bulimic. For long stretches of my life, I filled my body and psyche with drugs and substances, whether it be food or dope or rock, just to change the way I feel, to change the way I felt. But I've carried on so far in life. And throughout much of my life, that's felt like left foot, right foot, just slog it out like Grandpa Abram, walking away from that well, walking into the future, walking into the rest of his life, left foot, right foot. It can always get worse. How's that for motivational saying? Don't worry, boys and girls, it can always get worse. It's true. You can always put your left foot down in front of your right foot down. That orneriness and that mindset that I'm going to keep walking forward no matter how bad life gets. Well, there's a lot to that, and I've lived by that for long stretches of my life. But I'll also tell you that if that's your mindset, when that has been my mindset, I found that life was a slog, because that's what I thought I was good for. I can slog it out. Can't nothing stop me. As bad as it gets, Cosmos, take this. I'm going to put my left foot down and my right foot down. You can't break my spirit. But that leads to a life of slogging, because you're consumed with the wounds of those stripes. The child of the tiger is born with stripes. By his stripes we are healed. It is the stripes that allow the tiger to live. I opened this video talking about how I think of life as a pilgrimage. The most important part of the trail is the ground right underneath your feet, right here and now. Not way up ahead where happiness is, just around the next bend. Not in the past that you drag behind you like a log, trying to carve it into the shape of a key that will unlock your happiness. The only steps that matter on the trail are the ones right in front of your feet, where you put down your left foot and your right foot. You see, even when I imagine my life in mythical terms, I think about Grandpa Abram slogging, putting his left foot down and his right foot down. But it ain't just a slog anymore, Pilgrim. I think of that tiger, stealthily making his way through the jungle, stealthily making his way through the snowy forest of Siberia, putting his left foot down and his right foot down, and blending in with his surroundings, and surviving and thriving because of those stripes. By his stripes we are healed. And those stripes are the damage and the wounds passed down to me. And those stripes are the orneriness and the determination to live and the will to live that have got me here right now. I'm 51 years old. And I don't feel today like I'm slogging through life. I feel like I'm sauntering. Not like a sullen, stubborn mule either, but like a tiger making his way through the forest, blending in, surviving and thriving because of those very stripes. Life is a complicated thing. Embrace it, Pilgrim. If you're a child sex abuse survivor, if your war zone was some other flavor, maybe a lot of physical harm, emotional harm, societal harm, racial harm, maybe you're an actual war zone kid, like one of my favorite UFC fighters, Khamzat Chimaev, who was born in Grozny, grew up in Chechnya in the 90s, an actual war zone kid, lost his father in the wars with the Russians. There's trauma for you, straight up variety. No matter what the kind of war zone was that you came from, you may find when you get out of the sea of suffering and you face the rage and pain of your actual life and you begin to live it, you may find that once you give up the quest to be somebody else, once I gave up the quest, the idea that I was going to be some other guy with some other psyches because I rejected myself, when I began to embrace myself and who I was and to accept it, I began to see that the stripes I carry are not only wounds. The stripes I carry are strength and power. And the stripes I carry are in my nature. They are a part of me. Do not get hung up on permanent natures or anything like that. I mean, they're a part of me in the here and now. That's an element of my psyche. It's an element of who I am in the present moment. The child of the tiger is born with stripes. By his stripes, we are healed. The child of the tiger is born with stripes. By my stripes, I am healed. Because of the power of life that I have found in my stripes are part of my healing. My stripes are part of me, and my stripes allow me to live in the here and now. By my stripes, I am healed. And by my stripes, I am a tiger stalking through the woods. I am a tiger sauntering lightly, effortlessly, gracefully through the jungles of India and the snowy forest of the northern woods in Siberia. One foot in front of the other, lightly, silently, invisibly, gracefully, with my orange and black stripes and my white underbelly. By his stripes, we are healed. The child of the tiger is born with stripes. By my stripes, I am healed. And by my stripes, I am what I am. That's what's on my mind about intergenerational trauma and life. It is very hard to tell the good from the bad. Like and don't like is the simplest thing in the world. Telling the good from the bad is a whole other story, Pilgrim. I like my stripes. My stripes are wounds, and my stripes are life. It is by my stripes that I can saunter silently, gracefully through the jungle and the northern forest on the trail to the western lands, a place of peace and wholeness, as I learn and become what I am. As this tiger learns to love his stripes for all that they are. It's a beautiful day on the trail to the western lands, Pilgrim. And daylight's burning. Let's get a move on.